Hey everybody, we're about to sit down with Andy Mangels. Andy Mangels did a lot of the adaptations of like the 80s and 90s slasher movies like Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Child's Play, that sort of stuff. That's where I know Andy Mangels from.
Are they, when you say adaptations, are they like what I see on the screen?
It's
or is
literally
it a brand
like
new story?
Child's Play 3 in comic book form. Or like Nightmare on Elm Street in comic book form.
I didn't know if it was like a new story just with those characters.
No, they're adaptations. They're comic book adaptations. In the long, long ago, when movies got comic book adaptations.
Nice.
But recently, he has been working on Wonder Woman 77 with the Bionic Woman, which is like a Dynamite DC crossover, which is pretty cool concept to me. So, but we will sit down with him just in a minute. He's talking with a customer. And we want him to make as much money as possible. You got to make that cheddar, that feria in Juan's language.
Oh, wow. The feria, money in your language.
Money. Dinero.
Pesos.
But yeah, we'll sit with him here in just a minute.
And put this on pause.
Booyah. Andy, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on with us. I'm super excited to have you.
Great to be here.
So the first question I want to ask is kind of what was your origin? We always ask our interviewees, what's your origin story? Because it's a comic book podcast. But what's the origin of you kind of getting into the comic book industry?
I'm an old man, so I'm 50 right now. And the way I got into comics actually isn't really how you couldn't do it now because it doesn't exist now. But I was in a Teen Titans APA, Amateur Publishing Association, which is kind of the equivalent of a website bulletin board community.
Okay.
But back then, fans would create these APAs and they would write or draw something and then send it into a central mailer, and 50 copies of it would be collated and sent out to the 50 members. And I was in this Teen Titans APA with a bunch of people who are now comic stars like Rob Liefeld, Hank Knaltz, and it enabled me to kind of start my way as a kid in Big Fork, Montana, to start my way into the comic scene and into fandom. And Hank and Rob and another guy in the APA told me that Fantagraphics was doing a book on George Perez, and they knew that I was an expert in George even at 16. And they said, you should contact them about doing something for them. And that led to me getting work for Fantagraphics on this book, focused on George Perez. And then that led to me writing for Amazing Heroes magazine, which was one of the most long-term comic book fanzines.
Right.
APAs and fanzines have really gone the way of the dodo. You know, there's very few comic book-oriented fanzines. There are still a few around, but very few. But working for the fanzines and writing about other people's comics got me in touch with a lot of editors and other writers. It taught me to write on a deadline. And also taught me like what was working in the industry and what wasn't, what trends were coming up and so forth. And eventually that enabled me to kind of push my way into actually writing comics themselves.
That's awesome. So when you, working for Fantagraphics, working kind of with people that are bigger names like in comic books now, was there ever like those weird starstruck moments or was it because it was so like organically created? Was it just like, oh yeah, these are normal people to me? Like
the starstruck moments, once I met George Perez, which I think I was 14 the first time I met him, that was my huge moment.
Nice.
He was the person I wanted to meet more than anybody. And after that, there were very few of them because I got to know people over the phone or by mail. And it wasn't kind of the immediacy of what fans have now is they can go to conventions and interact with all these creators regularly. They can go on Facebook and interact and so forth. That wasn't available back then.
Right.
And so really you got to know people through phone or mail, and you got to know them on a more personal level. And when fans contacted you, or when a writer contacted you from a magazine or something like that, it was a bigger deal because there were so few opportunities to interact with fellow creators or fellow fans. I've gotten starstruck a few times when I have dealt in Hollywood, but really rarely. Like the first time I met Linda Carter, I was pretty starstruck.
Well, yeah, come on. Who wouldn't be starstruck meeting Linda Carter, though?
And the first time I met Lindsay Wagner was the same way. But it's funny now because I just saw Linda about a month and a half ago, and she saw me and she reached over and grabbed my beard and pulled on it so hard it almost bled. She's like, "Hey, you!" She grabs my beard, and after I screamed, I said, let's do that again, but do it lightly and let's take a picture of it.
like a stroke less than a pull.
Right. And so now I'm actually friends with Linda Carter as opposed to, oh my God, you meant so much to me. So part of working on projects in this realm, I've done 13 Star Trek books and lots of Star Trek comics and Star Wars and so forth. Getting to meet people on a level of I'm a professional like them.
Right.
Has been really cool. The first time I did a Star Wars signing with a bunch of the actors, I was like, hey, Dave Prowse, you have pizza on your tie. and getting to sit down and just talk with them, you realize that, they're professionals doing a job. And if you don't treat them like a god, then you have a much, much easier chance of just kind of being cool with them.
Right. That's awesome. Like, it's good advice for like any fan that wants to approach one of their, childhood heroes or something. Last year, you were the officiant for the kind of mass wedding that they did at the end of Con, and then
called the Unity Wedding.
The Unity Wedding.
That's the official title.
Awesome. I'm glad it has an official title because I botched that. Going into it, you're also doing it again this year.
Correct.
How exactly did you end up being the officiant for the Unity Wedding?
I'm not sure why they asked me, but I know one of the elements last year was they were being. Last year was the year that gay marriages were legalized and so forth. Even though they had been in Colorado, they hadn't been in the rest of the country.
Right.
And so I was the first openly gay creator in mainstream comics and have been kind of at the forefront of gay creators in the industry. And so I think from that perspective, they wanted me, both as a Wonder Woman expert and openly gay creator and a Star Trek expert for the convention. And they kind of brought it in sideways, like, would you be interested in officiating at this wedding? And I was like, absolutely I would. But what do you mean? Yeah. And it ended up being, there were 10 couples last year. And so there's a logistics to any wedding is complicated.
Right.
Wedding 10 people at the same time, but separately, is 10 times more complicated. But I think it was a tremendous ceremony. R2-D2 made a cameo appearance. And it was a lot of fun. And a year later, all 10 couples are still together.
Awesome.
3 of the couples are actually helping out behind the scenes at this year's wedding.
Nice.
And I'll be marrying 9 couples this year. And what's really cool to see is that the title Unity Wedding is not just a uniting of couples, but it's showing a unity between people, because there are male-female couples, there are male-male couples, there's female-female couples, there's transgender couples, and it really is showing that, as Lin-Manuel Miranda said, love is love is love is love.
Right.
And that's really what we're seeing on stage.
Being one of the first openly gay comic book artists, like in the 80s and 90s and stuff like that, what challenges did you have to overcome with that kind of stuff?
That's a question that I get a lot, and it's tough to answer in a politically nice way. What I'll say is that in the industry, it's extraordinarily easy for editors to say no to a creator, whether it's an artist or a writer or a letterer or a colorist. They just say no, not interested. You don't know why they're not interested. You don't know what their reasoning. And for many people, that reasoning may not be that they're not professional enough or something along those lines. They're not ready for work yet, or they're not the style that the editor's working for. I know absolutely certain that there are certain editors who didn't hire me because I was openly gay at a time that wasn't okay with them. These days, I don't think that is as much an issue as right now. I may not be getting as much work as I normally would because I'm older, and they look for younger, fresher, people to write these days. So it's a tough question to really look at, because you don't know whether something is because of homophobia or whether it's ageism, or whether it's you're not right for this project, or things like that. There's a million reasons for them to say no.
They don't like your beard.
Right. Anybody who doesn't like my beard, they're
horrible human beings. Screw those people.
Right. I actually wore a T-shirt yesterday through the airport that said, "Don't judge my beard, and I won't judge your lack of masculinity." And the security guy at the airport, who was clean shaven and who couldn't grow a beard, was like, I can't grow a beard. I'm so sorry.
Is this patchy?
It's an attempt. That's what's important.
So speaking of things that you are working on, you are doing Wonder Woman 77. I always want to call it versus the Bionic Woman, but that's not what it is at all. But it's Wonder Woman 77, the Bionic
Meets
Woman.
the Bionic Woman.
Which is the Dynamite DC crossover. How did that come to be?
Well, it's your malapropism there about versus is kind of an interesting point in how I'm writing the series, because when I proposed the series, the idea was that at no point would it be versus.
Okay.
Fans are used to, for 50 years, that every time characters team up, they first have to fight each other.
Correct.
Or sometime during the series, they will fight each other. At minimum, they're going to have a really intense argument. If not, punch each other through a wall. It was very important to me because as characters on television, both Wonder Woman and the Bionic Woman, the way they were portrayed by Linda Carter and Lindsay Wagner, and the way the writers wrote the episodes, they were relatable characters who you really wanted to be your best friend.
Yes.
There was nothing about them that was aggressive or bitchy. Everything about them was, I want that to be my mom. I want that to be my sister. I want that to be my best friend. I want that to be my girlfriend. They were characters that you could love, and that was part of their power, was that you loved.
Right.
Certainly in the new movie, that's Wonder Woman is all about love. And so when I approached this series originally, I specifically said that at no point in this series will they ever even disagree with each other. They will learn from each other, they'll respect each other's opinions, and they will understand they're different people, but they're never going to even disagree. Not even I want Pepsi and you want Coke. So how it came about was that I was up for the writing job for Wonder Woman 77, and so I did a proposal of 12 issues, and then I said at the end of the first year I want to lead into a crossover series of Wonder Woman meets the Bionic Man, or the $6 Million Man and the Bionic Woman. And in the proposal I said, it's like printing money. That's the exact pitch. That's the exact pitch for that. I just said, here's the title. I want to lead into this. It's like printing money. I didn't get the job writing the Wonder Woman 77 book. However, DC kept that in kind of the back of their heads. And on Christmas Day 2 years ago, what was that, 2015?
Yeah.
On Christmas Eve, Hank Knaltz, who was in the Teen Titans APA with me when I was a teenager, and he's now a vice president at DC Comics, the last thing he did before he left the office on Christmas Eve was to send me an email, and he says, Wonder Woman meets the Bionic Woman is a go, talk to Dynamite. And so I was like, well, so I sent a message to Nick.
We're going to print money.
Yeah, right. So I sent a message to Nick Barucci at Dynamite, and he's like, well, let's talk after the new year. So I had a great Christmas present that was just delayed.
Nice. That is so awesome.
And so then it was just kind of a question of working it all out and coming up with the best story possible that both Warner Brothers and Universal would like, that Linda Carter and Lindsay Wagner would like, that the editors from both companies would like, and that the fans would like. That's a lot of masters to serve.
Yeah, that's a lot of...
And
so, what do you think, 80 people?
right. The success of the series right now, I think the worst review gave it a 7 out of 10.
Nice.
It's been reviewed all over the internet. Every issue gets reviewed by lots of different reviewers. The sales have been spectacular. The fans, come up to me and are just like, "This could not be more perfect." And I think a big part of that is that as a fan myself, I'm really looking at what makes the characters work and what makes them important and iconic. And I think we saw that in the Wonder Woman movie that just came out, that the director and the writers got that about Wonder Woman.
Right.
They could change the setting, but it was still about what makes that character work and what makes her iconic. And you don't always get that with creators on books or creators in movies. They'll get the general essence of the character, but they don't pay attention to what necessarily makes them work or what makes the fans love them so much.
Almost like the nuance of the characters, what's missing. So
Right.
That's awesome.
So I've worked really hard on the series to kind of make sure that all of that is there.
And people are loving it. Like you said, like every review I've seen of it has been amazing. So
Thank you.
I'm excited to have the chance to read it. I just haven't gotten there yet. It's one of those, like my pull is way too many books. So I have like 3 short boxes of, I got to get to those this week.
If I recall, your podcast is called Long Box, so you should not have any short boxes.
It's just a space issue in my house. Well, Andy, how can people find you, like on the internet and that sort of thing?
My website is my name, andymangels.com. And if you misspell it, which most people do, it's Andy, A-N-D-Y, and then Mangels is spelled like angels with an M in front of it. So if you think of another 70s show, Charlie's Angels, just kind of associate that with it. And, Andy and Charlie's Angels. But yeah, andymangels.com, and that has a list of all my credits. You can contact me through the website. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. And I'm a pretty easy guy to get to know and completely open to talking to fans and so forth.
Which has been awesome. Last year at Comic-Con, I had you sign my glow-in-the-dark Friday the 13th comic.
Yes, that's rare. That's very rare.
I know. You were so great to talk to. I was like, should I unpolybag it? Yes, I should. But
one of the nice things about being able to go to conventions and see as many people as we can now see, if you take the time to talk to a creator about a specific project, sometimes you get the best stories you get, I'll sit there and talk to somebody for as long as they want to listen to me about writing Star Trek or writing Jason Goes to Hell or writing Chucky or writing, Star Wars, because I'm a fan too.
Right.
I'm a fan who is a professional fan. I got to write these characters professionally, but I'm still a fan. I don't work on projects that I'm not a fan of.
That's cool. Like, that's got to be like because we're kind of in the same boat. We don't get, paid to do it, but we enjoy doing this. And so we just continue to do it. Like,
right.
And it's that really cool thing where every year, every con, we're involved a little bit more and more people are interested in talking to us. And it's because I walk up to somebody like you and I'm like, oh man, I loved this comic book when I was a kid. Can you please sign it? You chat with me a little bit. And then next year when you're on the roster, I'm like, Juan, email that guy. So thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you.